Hi everyone, this is the SIG Cluster Lifecycle meeting of the 13th September, and this is the meeting where we're especially thinking about like upgrades, self-hosting AJ plans for 1.8 and beyond. And yeah, we're close to the 1.8 release now. What's remaining is mostly ducks, I think from our side. And one of the most important parts is also upgrade testing, which I guess we're going to talk a bit about today. And yeah, probably some planning for like the next cycle, at least drafting something. I know Tim said yesterday we should talk about AJ. I agree. That's also
well, there was a question from Chris about it, but she's not here. I know that there's other proposals, and right now we are in the end of release cycle. So I don't know if we want to wait on that or maybe queue it for the last topic.
For me, it doesn't matter if we can whatever start with upgrade testing or something. I also have a bit to say about like, testing in general. I don't know. You can.
I've been doing a fair amount of testing on my own, and I've uncovered some weird things. So I wouldn't mind going into the upgrade test first if Jessica has like a TLDR, and then I have some things I found which I think should be addressed. So.
Yeah, indeed. Jamie, I can ping Jamie offline or on Slack to see if he's going to make it. He has also been involved in the upgrades.
Yeah, I can give an update on my end while Jamie comes on. So on my end, I'm working on the Kubernetes Anywhere to support upgrade so that we can use it on our end-to-end tests for kubeadm. And I've basically written all the code. I know it works for the 1.6 to 1.7 kubeadm init path, the kubeadm upgrade path for 1.7 to 1.8. I'm blocked behind that bug that Lucas found. So I don't feel comfortable pushing out a pull request until I validate it actually works. And that is blocked behind that bug.
Which bug?
The one that involves a nil pointer. I can go find it.
Wasn't that on like kubeadm token something, the like CLI command?
No, it has something. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, cool.
So it's Kubernetes repo issue 52242. I can put that in the chat for
please do.
your convenience. There. Oh. So basically what happens when I do the upgrade is it goes through the upgrade and immediately hits the issue linked. And so it doesn't come to health, and therefore you need to have this fixed.
Are you sure it's the right link? It takes me to a AWS ELB issue.
Oh, sorry. I cut off the end of that link. My bad.
Oh, yeah, now it looks better. Ah, yeah, that one. Yeah. I'm not sure what's up with the kubelet there, but yeah, we definitely has to get that. Anyway, I think it's okay to like merge the things into Kubernetes Anywhere and test infra and like say that they are with a reason red right now. We have other test suits that also are red because of this, which is partly why I found it when investigating that one. Does that sound good to you?
I suppose I could do that. I think because I don't have a fully successful end-to-end with the kubeadm upgrade command, I don't know if I have done everything correctly on my end. So let's say this bug gets fixed and maybe I forgot to do something else, some other variable or run some other command. I won't know until after this gets fixed that I need to do some more changes to actually make it work.
You can use 1.7 kubelets as well all the time to verify. I mean, this bug was introduced at head in 1.8 cycle, right?
So to do an upgrade, oh, so you're saying to keep the kubelet at 1.7, but use a kubeadm of 1.8?
Yeah.
That would involve more code work.
Oh.
That's definitely an option. I mean, right now, the kubeadm and the kubelet and all that is updated in kind of one fell shot to one version. But yeah, I guess there are options to sort of work around it and test it.
So I thought this would only upgrade the control plane like as an initial step.
Yeah. So the code is a bit simplistic, I guess, that when it gets to the part where it updates kubeadm, it updates kubeadm and kubectl and a bunch of other things to the same version right now. Of course, it can be broken apart. It's not required to be that way, but
Okay,
it is the way it is now.
I see. Anyway, please send out the PR.
Okay, I can do that.
I mean, we can discuss this there.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I'll read it.
Thanks.
Cool. Jamie, did you have any question? It was one tricky question there somewhere.
Yeah, so Jessica and I have been syncing up, so I think I have all the info I need to take another stab at it tomorrow. Basically, it's just adding, I think I need to submit another pull request to Kubernetes to add some more like test helpers and stuff like that. But yeah, if I have any more questions, I'll ask Jessica.
Sounds good. And thanks a ton for helping. This is way faster with your help.
Yeah, really cool. It's, yeah, just to be mindful of like the code freeze is probably lifting today. When I spoke to Jace, and yeah, we would have to start cherry picking things if it doesn't make like today evening or something like that. What is it used for? Like, can you please remind me again why we need to do that kind of thing?
So basically, like the current test helpers in, I think it's like E2E directories and stuff like that. We need to add another switch statement so that the tests can actually invoke Kubernetes Anywhere. Because right now the only providers that are supported are like GC, GKE, and I think that's it. So we need to add another thing for Kubernetes Anywhere to be invoked from the tests. Is that a fair representation, Jessica? Do you want to add more content there, maybe?
Sure. So the way tests are set up is that the the upgrade test itself is defined in Kubernetes. And so we just need to update that test to go through the Kubernetes Anywhere path. So that's why we need to touch Kubernetes. So it's really only a test update. Does the code freeze apply to test changes?
No, so I mean, it's okay, but it will just take some time to do the process.
You also need to cherry pick it back,
Yeah.
because the wait is just a process of how PRs will get merged through in order for it to make sure it lands up on the right location.
Yeah, but do we need a question like, from what I understood, this is for the upgrade or feature master upgrade test, EDE test, right? They are using this code. Can we initially, like for the first test infra side of it, bit of it, just do conformance tests after the upgrade is made? And then like, if we get this into 1.8 cherry picked and all that, I mean, we definitely should, but not block the initial test coverage on this feature master upgrade EDE test tag. Does that sound reasonable?
Well, so the upgrade logic is in this upgrade test, which is in Kubernetes. And so right now, if we don't add that fork to actually call Kubernetes Anywhere, it's going to try to call the kube-up script, I believe it's called. And that's not going to work for a Kubernetes Anywhere setup. So it won't work at all. So we do need this if we want to have the upgrade tests working.
I thought that first a 1.7 cluster would be spun up, then we run conformance tests, then we test infra, the kube test binary somehow, after those are finished, like upgrades kube anywhere, and then when the upgrade is done, conformance tests are like run again. That was my mental model, but yeah.
So the upgrade piece lives in Kubernetes, and the current behavior right now will not work for the Kubernetes Anywhere setup. So we do need that logic if we want the upgrade bit to actually do an upgrade properly.
Is it possible to somehow show that into kube test? Like the kube test .anywhere go logic.
That sounds complicated. It seems big to me. I'd have to look at it carefully. But right now, all that logic is in Kubernetes.
I don't know, like, because you can switch on provider. If we can somehow like link through provider, through, this is a bigger change, right? But eventually link through provider and do the switch of the right thing in the right spot. Because right now the upgrade test jiggery is a little brittle, right? Is there still a manual process at all, Robert, for the upgrade validation, or is it trying to move to fully automated?
Which upgrade validation? Sorry.
Yes.
Kubernetes.
Upgrade validation used to be manual, right?
Some of the upgrade validation used to be manual, right? So the manual upgrade validation that we did like maybe 2 releases ago was the upgrade tests where you created objects, then ran an upgrade and verified the objects were still there and working, which is the new upgrade framework that Chris Rousey wrote to automate that. Those tests, I think, have actually been relatively stable and sort of passing. The ones that have been really hard to get working and get a signal out of, partly because they're really slow, and then they run all of our tests, many of which are flaky, are the upgrade tests where we like provision a cluster, we run EDEs, we upgrade the cluster, we run EDEs again. Sometimes we upgrade the cluster a second time and run EDEs again. And the fact that you're like taking EDE tests, which are already flaky, and running them multiple times, and then serializing the whole process so that it takes like 12 hours to run, means that it's really hard to tell if things are working, because you're going to get a red dot if anything fails during that whole process, and then it takes 12 hours to repeat. So like ironing out flaky signal is also really slow. And the other problem with those is that those tests are sort of conflating multiple things. They're conflating like version skew testing plus upgrade testing, version skew in both directions plus upgrade testing. And I would like to start to break that apart. I'm not sure we're going to get there for 1.8. But we have been using those automated tests for signal in addition to the sort of newer test things as you upgrade tests. So I think for this release cycle, the plan with the kubeadm upgrade tests is to verify that kubeadm upgrades actually work, but not to verify that all of Kubernetes works in an upgrade scenario. Because we have the old test framework to do that. I would love to, at some point, throw it away and replace it with something different, especially as we want to get rid of kubeup and the corresponding upgrade shell script, which is pretty terrible. But we're not quite there yet, I don't think.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't really like building in Kubernetes anywhere things, even in the IDE test binary, like in the core, right, just for testing kubeadm. I'm not a fan of like doing this in test infra either, but at least it seems a little more reasonable. I don't know, like that we specify like Kubernetes anywhere upgrade provider kubeadm, and test infra. The kube test will run the conformance test once. It will exec like whatever thing in Kubernetes anywhere we specified as an argument, and then it will run the conformance test again. Then for 1.9, we're going to look into how to make the master upgrade IDEs work more generally, like not switch on provider, like in core in core code, and somehow improve that. I don't know. What do you think?
So if we do that, then we're basically doing the old style testing where we're running 2 sets of conformance tests and not verifying that the upgrade process itself doesn't break you. And that's the thing that we used to do manual testing for. So I think if we don't run the new during upgrade part of the upgrade tests, we are not actually getting coverage that kubeadm upgrades work, like don't break you during the upgrade. Like I think what you'd be verifying there is that once the upgrade is finished, the new cluster is conformant at the new EDE tests, but not that the upgrade doesn't break you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. But so you mean that if we have this feature master upgrade, we'd get coverage like during this window of upgrading that your cluster is still healthy? But I'm not sure if that's going to work anyway.
Well, it's not just that your cluster is still healthy. It's that an object you created in your cluster at the old version still exists and still works. Like I think we've had bugs in the past where like the upgrade process will rejigger stuff in etcd and like you might like lose objects, right? Is a potential failure scenario we've been concerned about. So, obviously this is sort of anticipated with alpha objects, but say you create an alpha cron job in your 1.7 cluster and you upgrade to 1.8, and like it's possible that that thing just gets erased from etcd or you can no longer access it, right? And we want to make sure that doesn't happen for things that are beta and above objects, right? And so that's what this create something beforehand and upgrade and verify that it's still there and it's still working. It's not just that the upgrade is not disruptive, because it often will be disruptive. It's that things you created don't get destroyed during that upgrade process. Because if all you do is run conformance tests afterwards, you're verifying that the new cluster, new things you created after you've upgraded work. It's not that things you created beforehand still work, right? And I think that's the key part that would be missing.
Okay. So regarding the timeline, I'm just wondering, is it better to try to push the full feature master upgrade thing in the core at this stage? Or I mean, I thought that like what we supported for this version was like conformance test, upgrade, conformance test, not the like what you described a minute ago. I mean, it's more a question about like, this is beta. This is like what you described is definitely required for GA. Is it something that will block us right now, or I mean, just in the, well, it's a time constraint.
Sure. I mean, I guess reading through Jessica's doc about how we were going to test upgrades, it sounded to me like we were going to be able to cover both scenarios. And so I guess I'm wondering what is going to cause us to back away from that and say that we can't cover both scenarios. And maybe you guys talked about that earlier, and I was not paying attention.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether we should build in Kubernetes Anywhere code at this stage in the release to either test, .test. Like, I can just imagine that it can be somewhat heavy. Like, should we then block the release on this thing, right? Like, kubeadm upgrade EDE tests aren't working because there was a bug in the EDE test binary. I just wanna ask these questions in beforehand before we do. I mean, I think it sounds good, but we really have to make sure.
Yeah, so I guess I'm not sure I understand your concern about modifying Kubernetes Anywhere. It's not actually tied to the Kubernetes release. I'm not even sure it has its own release cycle. Like at this point, we're sort of using it as test infrastructure for kubeadm. I'm not sure if it's actually being used for anything else. So trying to sort of get that updated so that we can use it as upgrade test infrastructure too. I don't think we'd block the Kubernetes release for that. I think we might come back and say, let's do a couple of manual tests. I know that Tim has been doing some manual tests, which is catching stuff anyway. And just say, like, we did some manual tests. Like you said, it's beta, and that's maybe good enough for now. But I think we should try to get automated upgrade tests working because we're going to want to have those on the master branch anyway as part of the 1.9 development cycle to verify that we catch breaks as early as possible.
Yeah, I was referring to the switch statement in the ede.test binary, which we'd have to do, like, due to how we can't refactor that at this stage. And I don't know, like, should we 100, 200 line PR to add Kubernetes Anywhere to the ede.test binary, which we might even have to cherry pick. And like, if that then has a small bug or something, small oversight, then we'd have to go that process twice. And should we block the release on what we have to put in core? I mean, I'm not at all concerned about like what we put in Kubernetes Anywhere and test infra, because we can update that really quickly, and also like get new runs. But we're depending. I'm just saying that we're depending on the release team to fast forward, like until we have until the master and release 1.8 is starting to diverge, and then on cherry picking and the CI jobs there to run.
Yeah, I think it might be starting to diverge today, right? I think we're already at the point where they're not fast forwarding, and I think I heard yesterday that they might be opening the master branch for 1.9 stuff. So we're already at the point where it'd be cherry picks to get into 1.8. I'm not sure we should let that stop us though. Like if we think it should be put in and cherry picked to validate the 1.8 release, then I think we have an argument to send that PR. And if they say no, it's too risky, then we do a little bit of manual testing and try to get it in the master branch so we get testing ahead. Right, where we want it in the master branch either way, right? If they reject the cherry pick, then they reject the cherry pick, but we should put it in the master branch.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, well, actually, at this stage, upgrade from 1.7 to master branch, which will equal 1.9 eventually, is basically 1.8 now. So
yes, yeah. So we could even get a little bit of signal from that. But even after that, we're going to want to do upgrade from the 1.8 branch to the master branch.
Yeah. But I'm still of the opinion that it shouldn't be a switch clause, like, and put your provider here logic. But yeah,
Yeah, I haven't looked at that code. I don't know how ugly it is, because I know we support multiple deployers at this point. I don't know how well we support different upgraders.
Yeah, okay. Then I think the conclusion is that Jessica will go ahead and do the things needed. And like ping us for reviews. We hope we can get that as soon as possible in. I think, well, I'll re-review Jamie's PR tomorrow when it gets updated. And yeah, we'll try to get the like real upgrade testing with create an object first, verify it's still there afterwards. Yep, sounds good to me. Any other comments?
I have comments, but they're related to testing, but not the automation of it. Should I go with that now, or should we wait till?
Shoot.
So I started doing some SKU testing on my own to validate the upgrade process, and I came across a bunch of thorny issues that some of which have been lingering for a while, but I was never able to reproduce them, or I never spent the time to dig into it. But now I can reproduce a couple of conditions that are pretty thorny ones. The one that's the nastiest, I think, that applies to the most distributions that we've seen is you get the kubeadm stuck in this crash loop backoff condition. And yeah, so allow myself to introduce myself. You get to this problem where you're stuck, right? And I don't know if Craig wants to comment more on this, but there's a couple of, one of the questions I had was, it's definitely, we believe it's definitely related to some race condition in CNI. This is a hypothesis, but we don't have solid definitive proof. And one of the questions I had when I was evaluating this is that I uncovered that we're still running really old CNI. We're planning on updating that. It's pretty late in the game to do that, but we've never actually had real test cycles. Maybe we have, maybe we haven't, against a given version of CNI. So I guess that's the first question. What version of CNI do we want to release against, and have we given it a fair amount of testing cycles? And what provider, right?
So, do you mean which version of CNI we support in 1718, or like which?
Well, what version? Because I don't know what version the kubelet can skew to, but we currently distro 051 still, which is really old, right? And I know that they're releasing 060. So that's the first question, is what version should we be releasing? What version is upstream test against?
151.
051.
051. Yeah, so in mid-cycle, I realized that this might be a problem. I opened an issue for it, pinged SIG testing, said that we should really start like investigating adding test coverage for this now. I basically didn't ever get an answer.
No, I saw you
not a
issue
solid
it.
one at least. So
it just seems wonky to be releasing these things and there's known revisions which have known fixes and other modifications to them, right? We should be, the node team should be tracking, the versions they support and updating the list in the test coverage to support these other versions, right? I don't think the onus should be on us in this one because they own the integration there, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's the node team either, right? It's really the networking team.
Yeah.
Right, CRI is the node team, but CNI should be, the networking team should be validating those.
Yeah, the code for all this spin up though is on the node, but yeah, I see your point. The second issue that we had, as I mentioned, was the crash loop back off one. I don't know if Craig wants to talk about this a little more because he was looking at one condition. I get a much nastier version of that where my whole machine goes down.
Oh.
And
Yeah, I mean, I could speak to it real quick. I'm actually looking at it as we speak, but from what I can see, it seems to be somewhere in the kubelet or the CNI. I don't think it's in CNI itself. There is a chance that it could be in Calico, which is the plugin that we're particularly using. But I'm suspecting more on the kubelet side, but I am in the midst of that code right now. But we are not the only, the other thing I'll say is we're not the only users with this particular problem. And from what it looks like, it's, as Kim described it earlier, as namespace leaking, is that 2 of these pods actually come up on the wrong namespace very early on. And then they're unable to communicate with the API server. If you delete them or you scale them down to 0 and then back up, they actually come back on the right namespace. So this also might have security implications.
yeah, and I've also witnessed, I think what's occurring on my environment, because I'm running like a Fedora kernel versus like some older version of it, I'm sure they probably did some optimizations, and I get a hard crash when I'm running. I was running the SKU tests, the end-to-end tests with, as many as I could, so like 600 tests against 1.8 tests against 1.7 kubeadm install. And I was going to flip it, but I never got past that point because it kept on exploding. So I'm in the middle of trying to trace down that bug and then move on to the other tests.
Does this happen with like Weave or Flannel or whatever other thing?
I was going to try it with Flannel because that's the oldest, right? Less churny. I can try it with that one next.
Yeah, I've used Weave and haven't seen that, but again, it's really tricky to catch race conditions anyway. It sounds like one.
The problem is the namespace code is pretty general, right? It's setting up the namespaces, the network namespaces. So I'll have to dig deeper in that one. I'll report back.
The other thing here, I mean, with regarding the race, is like how fast these particular pods come up, and that, as you point out, Lucas, depends a lot on like your network and machine and all sorts of things. But we see this pretty reliably with Calico on our AWS Quick Start.
Oh yeah, so. I mean, do we have to upgrade Calico? I mean, if this is a thing, and Calico notices that, oh, we have a race condition in both the existing and, well, in the existing code, they patch that, release whatever new point release they have, and should we then like say to users like, upgrade Calico on your 1.7 cluster first, then do kubeadm upgrade, because otherwise it will totally break? Or what's the preferred way? I mean, when we upgraded CNI, as we all know, in 1.6, everything broke because kubelet had this new notion of like, oh, I should send this error to CNI here, and it wasn't compatible with the CNI version we were using. We had to bump that and got into the node not ready.
Yep. So, yep, that was. I think what I'm going to probably start doing more of now, despite my desire not to, is go to the SIG network group meeting just to verify what versions they plan to support and make sure that they're revisioning and have some level of integration testing across these so many X providers, because we have no coverage, right? We have kubeadm, which basically says we have all of these different providers. We have no test metrics of support across these providers at all. So, and also to complicate things is that people see different versions of the bug based upon what kernel stack they're running. So like my kernel stack is fireworks exploding, but it's not so bad on CentOS. So.
Yeah, I mean, regarding testing, I tried to count on like what the test matrix look like currently, and I'll send an issue on this with more information. But basically, it was an easy matrix of, well, about 10 items. Resulted in this case in a 7,000 or so like suits to cover every cloud, every provider, network provider, every like upgrade scenario, whatever. And yeah, I mean, we have to somehow choose. I mean, I guess we're gonna do self-hosting by default as soon as possible in the 1.9 timeframe. Like enable that in the feature gate, which will automatically get picked up by the CI. But then we should also do the like static pods only thing to not drop coverage for that. Then I noticed, Jessica, as we said, the implicit upgrade of kubeadm also upgrades the kubelet. This is a bug because right now we run like one where we want to use kubeadm 1.8 and deploy a 1.7 cluster, but this currently means that we're getting 1.8 kubelets as well, which shouldn't be the case if we want, because then kubelets are higher than the master API version, which is not supported. So I'll file an issue on this as well, but it will have to be done anyway. This like implicit binding. Then I think also we should try to figure out some API or something more like than the JSON or dot file, whatever it is, possibly, if we can. Yeah. What's next up? Or do we have anything more to say about testing? Doesn't look like that. Matt from KubeSpray, did you have anything to say about KubeSpray, kubeadmin integration today? Or?
Not yet. I was wondering, so internal API server calls were all failing, or failing half the time because it didn't set API server count. This was in 1.7. It's still required, but it's not a field in the kubeadmin config.
Yeah, you can specify that with
extra args.
Extra args, yeah.
Okay, just checking. It would be cool if somehow kubeadm could figure out, oh, how many non-stale API servers are there?
There's actually a proposal up for fixing that. I mean, the API server count logic is. It's
not kubeadm's job. It's API server's job.
Yeah, it's the reconciler's job, and the reconciler is very limited. And there's a proposal to enhance that for 1.9. So I think that will improve significantly. Okay.
Beyond that, I don't have anything to say for this meeting. Just want to see what's blocking people, what's interesting, how exciting upstream E2E tests are.
They are exciting. Yeah, what else do we have? Tim, I saw Juju's comment on the checkpointing thing. Is that
yes. I need to go back to it like as soon as I'm done with this SKU version testing stuff. So I wanted to get like a batch or round of it done because we planned a version Sonobui as soon like shortly after the 1.8 release, and wanted to make sure that it didn't explode kubeadm, but it explodes it. So we wanted to make sure that it was done, and then as soon as that's done, I will be out of the office, and then as soon as I'm back, I plan to rebase that patch and work on that to get that done and in. Hopefully as quickly as we can get it into 1.9 early on so we get more cycles on it.
Yeah, okay. I also have a small concern about the work that we were doing for the daemon set upgrade strategy, because one of the SIG apps folks I was talking to at Google said that like the design still hadn't been agreed to, and they had some issues and concerns around it. So as much as we thought that we had agreement on what that should look like, it turns out that maybe we didn't, and that might take a few more rounds back and forth before we can actually get the daemon set surge upgrades implemented. But we should start now because it might take us a month.
Yeah, at least.
We definitely want to get it for 1.9, right? So I think we should not wait. We should start pushing on them and make sure that we get the review bandwidth early in the cycle.
It's more than review bandwidth, is consensus, right? Like that's the biggest problem. So I think as long as we just keep pounding the pavement as quickly as we can in the 1.9 cycle, I think we should be okay for things. But I think optimism got the best of us on a couple fronts last release cycle.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like we had some sort of verbal agreements early on in the cycle and then didn't sort of push on those into more formal agreements and code quickly enough. And we definitely need to get the formal design sort of sign off and consensus, like Tim said, as early as we can.
Yeah. Do we know if Diego is like gonna own this, or like that was part of the promise for 1.8? Do we know if he's still assigned to do that in 1.9, like since it didn't make 1.8, or like it was anyway? I mean, it was too little time left when the PR was like opened. It was less than 2 weeks before code freeze. So
this is for the daemon set upgrade. Sorry, yeah. I fell off of the call a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just no one's going to really have review time right now, given that it's, everyone's kind of chugging along on 1.8. So I think once that's passed, we can pick that back up. I don't see any reason that Diego wouldn't try and take that across the finish line, assuming that the proposal is accepted.
Yeah, I think the most controversial part was host port conflicts, but yeah, it's not straightforward, but I do think it can be solvable.
I mean, the other option, if let's say that's just not accepted, the proposal isn't in daemon set upgrades and that style aren't option. What we've been doing is if you can switch to deployments, it's a little bit gross, but you can do required anti-affinity and then also do some label shuffling so that with the selector, so that what happens is if you're on a single master, the anti-affinity during an upgrade is allowed because you technically have 2 copies with different labels on the same machine, but in a multi-master case, it won't allow multiple copies of the same instance the scheduler controller manager. So that's what we've been doing so far. And it works, but daemon set would be a nicer option than that.
And I have implemented upgrades using self-hosting, using the kubeadm upgrade command, using the temporary manifests. Kind of what you said, like first we have the 1.7 version, we duplicate that one, make sure it starts running, and rename it to something temp. Then upgrade the real daemon set. Once it's upgraded, the backup takes like ownership, and then when we see everything's up and running, 1.8 is okay again, we just remove the 1.7 copy. And this works, but I mean, rollback is super hard here. We're relying like, we're hoping this starts running somewhere, and if it doesn't, we're kind of screwed in the process. Were you about to say something, or did you get muted?
Oh no, I mean, yeah, I think the daemon set upgrade option is probably the best, because in that style you don't get rolling updates either, which technically doesn't really matter with an leader elected component. But yeah, so I think we just try and revisit this after the 1.8 release and see how far it goes.
Do we have something else in the 8 last minutes? I mean, AJ, of course, is something we should start talking about soon. And we've talked about that earlier in these meetings. Haven't decided on something really yet. So do we have any, I mean, I guess the most important thing here right now, do we have any counter proposals to what I wrote up in July?
I know there's a couple of people from Google who'd be interested in talking about HA that I don't think made it today, because I didn't tell them until yesterday that they should come to this meeting. And I would love if they could read over the current proposal. I don't know. I know you and Tim both wrote proposals. I don't know if those are sort of both still considered current, or if one supersedes the other. It'd be nice if we had at least like a single proposal we could point people to.
I think I lean towards the security model of, as well as some of the other logistics around Lucas's ideas. The only problem I see is the upgrade path for etcd. Right, that becomes more complicated now, right? So like the one benefit of doing the self-hosted controller model is that the upgrades become much simpler, and the deployments and scaling become much simpler. It gets more complicated because now we're going to own that upgrade path, and we have to do it in a mindful way because it's now a static. Those are the static pods for the most part.
Yeah.
Which I don't disagree with it from a security standpoint, right? I think that's probably a good idea.
Yeah. So basically, my proposal was written on top of Tim's. In some ways, I just removed the etcd operator and added some more alternatives and took the security aspects like RBAC into account. Other than that, it's pretty much the same. Anyway, I mean, I haven't updated this doc since July, and it wasn't, I started diving into upgrades then, so I didn't even have time to like answer all the comments. But once 1.8 is out, that's going to be my top priority.
Why don't we re-enqueue the topic for like 2 weeks from now or so, or because I'm going to be out next week, so at least 2.
Me too.
Okay, that sounds perfect. If we say 2 weeks from now, we'll talk about HA. If we can try to get the docs sort of updated and freshened up, maybe on top of Tim's, we can put a link to Lucas's and say superseded by this other doc, go over here, so to make it really obvious. And then I can point some people at those docs, and we can start talking about it in a couple weeks.
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me as well. Cool. Due to lack of a Zoom room for the newly started out of 3 cloud providers thing, I'm going to reuse this one for the next call, which is in 4 minutes. Again, if I understood it correctly, Yago was about to ask for, I don't know, from Zara or some other in the community that has access to Zoom, admin something. Anyway, that until that, we'll reuse this. But I think we can finish 3 minutes early or so I have time to close this and reopen for the next one.
Sounds good. I think I might dial in and listen to that. Probably not participate too much, but I'm curious what's going on.
Cool.
I will see you then. Bye.
Bye.